Before getting to the review, there's something I want to talk about. There is a culture in the video game industry about what they call crunch. It's the time in which companies, or rather their employees, spend very long hours overtime, sometimes unpaid, and this overtime is something that is detrimental to the health of all the people involved, and is bad, wrong, and inhumane to expect a single person to work a lot of overtime days toward the end of a game's development cycle, and the industry's normalization of it needs to stop. I'm not even close to an expert on this topic, I'm just merely informed. Naughty Dog. While they are known for their critically acclaimed titles, they are also known for using crunch. And as the Kotaku article from Jason Schreier states plainly, and I quote, "A critical flop may help show Naughty Dog that this isn't the best way to make games, that this level of sacrifice isn't necessary, that maybe the project isn't worth losing all these people." The article will be linked below. Give it a read. It's a good read, and if you haven't known about crunch, it helps show just a little bit of how it can be. While I'm not going to judge the quality of the game itself alongside the normalization of said crunch time, it would be egregious to pretend that was not a product of any amount of crunch. Thank you for listening. Let's get back to it. On June 14th, 2013, The Last of Us was released and was met with critical acclaim, with the remastered version even being the third best rated game on the PS4, according to Metacritic at the time of the script. With that said, the sequel was highly anticipated, and luckily I was not spoiled with any of the leaks that came out. Since I wasn't spoiled, I've been able to experience The Last of Us Part 2 the way Naughty Dog intended. Like, comment, and that subscribe button. And that bell for alerts to all my new videos coming out. Since there is some small spoilers to combat mechanics, I'm going to have to add a spoiler warning here. Get it? Because you guys get it. Without further ado, kick back, relax, and enjoy my review of The Last of Us Part 2.
I don't know what happened. I was supposed to take her to the Fireflies and walk away. You go halfway across the country with someone. She needed her immunity to mean something. Maybe I was starting to buy into that old cure business. Maybe I just wanted to do right by her. And then we made it. We found the Firefly. Because of her, they were actually going to make a cure. The only catch, it would kill her. Sweet Jesus.
Doctor?
What are you doing? I won't let you take her. This is our future. Think of all the lives we'll save.
The game starts off shortly after the end of the first game, just 5 years after, and you're controlling Ellie, who is 19 years old. She braves some pretty gruesome situations and does equally gruesome stuff as she makes her way through Seattle. There is more plot, but I don't want to spoil anything. The plot is compelling, tugging heartstrings here and there, while still giving you moments that can make even Dio say. What I can say is that the game has good pacing. Lots of characterization with some new faces and even old ones that were well spread out. Naughty Dog crafted a story that shows the complexity of human emotions and their will to change. Picking good voice actors would be essential to showcasing these themes, and Naughty Dog seems to have found great voice actors that do great jobs in just that. The Last of Us Part 2 does well in making you care for the people that you have around you throughout the whole story. Something that can't be said by many games.
What? Fucking ambush! Push it!
For most sections of the game, it gives you two main ways to go through each encounter you face. Either through loud gunfire and melee fights, or stealth. Since supplies like ammo are limited, you have a huge incentive to be stealthy, so that's what I did. Stealth is just crouching around behind objects like furniture, rubble, and even in tall or short grass by crawling. A new mechanic, not in the first game, that is greatly implemented here for stealth and environment navigation. It gives you a few more options to be stealthy, so it's a welcome addition. Sneaking around and pretty savagely killing people from behind with a knife is not only satisfying, but it makes me feel bad at the same time. Similar to charming the snake, but without your hand hurting from doing it so much.
Quiet.
You don't necessarily need to kill anyone when being stealthy. It does make it harder since enemy patrols seem smarter in this game, even when rounding corners, especially in combat.
Shut.
When being stealthy fails, it turns into a fight that has you either against the infected or the humans, sometimes both, and the human fights are usually the harder of the two. The main reason being that the AI in this game seems like it's better than the previous game. The enemies in the game actually flank you and even sometimes make small plans to push you when you're sitting still or hurt. The infected fights usually have only 1 to 4 enemies that are somewhat challenging to kill, while the rest are usually just regular infected. Important to note that I'm not saying every fight's like this. Throughout the game, while you're going through what are decently sized levels, they luckily give you a decent arsenal to match. Just smash some heads in and shoot others. In the game, you start off with a pistol and a rifle, and while playing you obtain other weapons like a bow and a shotgun. There are a few more that I don't really want to get into, like the flamethrower and crossbow, but I can say the weapons you get in the game are cool. And although some feel the same and are exactly the same, they did add a few new ones, as well as added a revamped, pretty awesome looking upgrade system for your weapons. When upgrading weapons, it makes a variety of stats go up for that weapon, like making it do more damage or hold more ammo. I really think the animation of Ellie actually upgrading the weapons in front of you is so cool. It shows you what has changed and even makes it feel very realistic, at least to me, in taking the parts off the guns. Not only do they let you customize your guns, but also yourself, with some add-on perks you can get by using supplements, which are pills you find throughout the game to make medkits heal you more, for you to apply them faster, or even let you be able to craft certain items. Very similar to a skill tree, although to gain access to these different branches of the skill tree, aside from the one they give you at the start, is to find these skill books that give you access to them. Similar to the first game, but different at the same time. I like how they section off skills through the skill books, as it keeps you guessing what you're going to get, at least for the first time around. The melee combat has been amazingly improved, especially in the fluidity department, because hitting people has never felt so brutal and realistic in most aspects. Speaking of melee combat being improved, there are 3 new types of infected you can fight, some easier than others. They are okay, in my opinion. They don't have anything crazy going on with them, any crazy abilities or anything. They're welcome as new types. They're welcome to help build the world. But otherwise, they're kind of small annoyances of anything, and nothing too scary. Crafting returns, and with some changes to it. A big change is that when you craft shivs, it now crafts 2, as well as being able to craft bullets, different rounds like dragon breath shotgun shots, and having the ability to repair a melee weapon like a machete, but also having to do more damage. Not an instant kill like it was in the first game on most enemies. Sometimes, especially later game, it gets up there in terms of how many times you have to hit them. With these small changes and the more interactiveness of the melee combat, it does make the game harder, and I personally enjoy that. It gives it a good balance for me, although I'm always willing to pay through a harder difficulty. Stay tuned. It's definitely worth mentioning they did change a few things from how the combat works compared to the first game. The bottles and bricks that are just littered everywhere among the environments now introduce a sort of critical strike. All you do is just by throwing it at them. In the previous game, that stunned them, but not only does it stun them in this game, it also allows you to do increased damage, usually one-shotting most enemies, unless they're a bigger infected or a bigger person towards the end of the game. They also introduced dodging enemies' attacks, sometimes making you feel like a badass if fighting more than one person. Ellie getting nitty and gritty and slicing people up and dodging with her knife like she is Juzo, it just makes you feel so badass. I do want to say that I wish there were more weapons to get, but the amount they give you is decent enough, so it's not a huge problem. For crafting as well, there was more stuff to be desired. They really made crafting a cool mechanic in the game, and seeing more would have just added to the experience. It would have been appreciated, but again, I'm just splitting hairs on some minor things. Quick side note, multiplayer is not out at release, and before release they did confirm that multiplayer will be worked on at this point, which is after release. So no multiplayer yet, but definitely expect a review or an impression of it when it does come out.
This hunter was on top of him, drowning him, and Joel couldn't get to his gun.
Jeez. Were you scared?
Well, I didn't even think. I just...
The majority of the game is spent in Seattle, and Naughty Dog has done a fantastic job creating the areas you explore throughout the game. They look realistic and run down, the way you would expect it to be, in a way that can honestly make it too good in line with the setting. I consider myself pretty observant, and some of the ways you transition to other levels admittedly had me stumped to only find out I was right in front of my face.
I stabbed him.
The amount of detail put into the environments make them feel believable, as well as give our familiar world a post-apocalyptic makeover that just looks better than ever. While they can make some beautiful environments, they also can make some environments in stark contrast to those same ones that depict a beautiful world becoming reclaimed by nature. These environments show human perseverance during the fungal outbreak, and its toll on society, as surviving is usually the only rule that's ever followed. They made great environments that really sucked me into the world more and more as the game progressed. The Last of Us Part 2 also has great sound design, from the way a forest sounds like a believable forest, and how cutting open someone's neck sounds what I think it may actually sound like.
Get the wolf!
Quiet.
The guns sound great as well. I mean, I really like the way the rifle sounds. Especially when I'm 360 iron sight headshotting some noob. It's so magical. The detailed character animations are cool too, being shot sometimes knocking you down in the process.
Don't let up!
Even letting you aim from a prone position in a realistic way, making you seeable through grass if aiming in a way that exposes yourself.
All right. Okay.
The Last of Us Part 2 is a step up from the first game in most ways, and tells its own intriguing story that keeps you invested throughout most of the game. The addicting melee combat and the immersive environments only elevate the story, having only a few complaints due to wanting more weapons, crafting options, and a missing multiplayer component at launch. Naughty Dog has taken what went right with the first game and only improved upon it to make it a more cohesive and mechanically fun adventure throughout Seattle compared to the first game. It's worth $60 for the high quality story, gameplay, and presentation, leaving minor gripes as the biggest flaws to me. The story here is worth hearing. With that said, for better or worse, The Last of Us 2 is an 8 out of 10 for me. Its story is great, the characters add to the story instead of taking away from it, and they made previously simple but fun gameplay a little more complex, enhancing the gameplay into the gruesome fun it is killing the infected and other human survivors this time around.
Anybody hear that?
They are shy from a 10 out of 10 for missing the multiplayer component that was present in the past game, and for the little weapons and crafting items they added. Although it's an 8 out of 10, it's the highest 8 out of 10 I can think of giving it, as some little tweaks and additional multiplayer are the only things really holding it back for me. The lack of multiplayer is not a huge problem, as you're already getting a good value in my opinion without it. Thanks for watching the review. If you liked this video, subscribe to get more content as it releases, and ring that little bell if you want to be one of the first people to watch the new videos as they come out. Other than that, this was Name Maven. See you on the next one.
Fuck is this?